These are the steps against our national security. Our state and government will take needed action against any attack, no matter what it is.
Turkey launches airstrikes against ISIL. What does Turkey's involvement mean for the region and the global fight against terrorism? Hello, I'm Mike Walter in for Anand Naidu in Washington, D.C., and this is The Heat. Turkey has remained relatively silent in the global fight on ISIL, the so-called Islamic State, until now. A bomb blast last week at the border town of Suruç led Turkey to start an air campaign against ISIL in Syria. But it's not without controversy in the country and in the region. Here with the latest on the ground is CCTV's Natalie Carney. She's in Istanbul. The timing of this, obviously very interesting. Turkey getting involved, somewhat surprising. It stayed on the sidelines. In fact, it's taken a lot of heat for not getting involved in this, even though ISIL's been on their doorstep, so to speak. What took so long, and what is the government saying now about continuing this fight?
Well, I think the reluctance for Ankara to get too far involved previously was the fact, quite frankly, that the threat wasn't directly on Turkey. It was always sort of someone else's war. ISIL had not brought the threat here to Turkey. So Turkey just didn't want to, get its feet too wet at the time. But that obviously grew into sort of a false sense of security, you can say. And we should also not dismiss the fact that, let's not forget, ISIL is attacking Turkey's traditional enemy, the Kurds. The Kurds in northern Syria are seen by the state as just an extension of the Kurdish separatists here in Turkey, the PKK. What turned the tides, as you mentioned, the bombing in the town of Suruç along the Turkey-Syria border, which killed 32 mainly Kurdish youths, was the event that sort of brought this fight to Turkish soil. Those that blame ISIL for the bombings now see the threat as being directed towards Turkey and towards Turkish sovereignty. It's also worth noting that elections that had taken place in June, which failed to elect one party as a majority government, could be another reason why all this is happening when it is. Coalition talks between parties have not amounted to very much and seem to be failing. There has been a lot of speculations. We could be seeing another round of elections very, very soon. So a more aggressive tone from Erdogan's AKP party, AK party, could be seen as a way to entice more votes from the nationalists in Turkey. So that's another element that a lot of analysts are seeing as a reason why Turkey is sort of inflating its position at the moment and taking a much more aggressive and offensive stance to the situation.
And you almost need a scorecard because there's so many players and it seems like they're playing on a lot of different teams. Let's take the PKK for example. It's a Kurdish militant group. It's been instrumental in the fight with the United States against ISIL. But again, as you said, the Turkish government sees the PKK as an enemy. In fact, I heard one analyst say, look, when you look at the government's point of view, the PKK is probably first as an enemy, Assad second, ISIL a distant third. So how is this playing there in terms of attacking PKK as well as ISIL in Syria?
Well, that's very true. That's a very important point to make. The Turkish state has been fighting the PKK, the Kurdish separatists. They had a 30-year civil war, which led to some 40,000 deaths. So for Turkey and for Turkish sovereignty, the PKK are seen as a much more substantial threat than the Assad government and then ISIL. So it's a very important and distinguishing point that needs to be made. Right now, this whole situation is now allowing the Turkish state, provoking the Turkish state, and many Turkish politicians have said so, to attack terrorism in general, not just ISIL, not just other terrorist groups, not even just the PKK. There's also a third terrorist domestic group here in Turkey, known as the Revolutionary People's Liberation Front, which is also part of this sort of conundrum of groups that the Turkish state is aiming at the moment. Davutoglu, the Prime Minister of Turkey, said that there are three terrorist organizations, Daesh, ISIL, the PKK, and the DHKP, the Revolutionary People's Liberation Front, that have started simultaneous attacks on Turkey. So again, the Turkish state is seeing this as sort of an answer back, an offensive, aggressive attack towards terrorism in general.
Certainly a conundrum, as you said earlier. Natalie Carney joining us from Istanbul. Thanks so much.